went on to tell me that she needed help getting birthday and Christmas gifts to her son. She asked if I could help with that. This was the quintessential Sarah Jane, the persona she presented to the world. But this was not the only Sarah Jane I came to know over the next 30 years. She might have been sitting in prison, but prison would only be a backdrop for her many personas. The gracious hostess, the efficient manager, the homey and talented seamstress and handicrafter, the valiant fighter for justice, or whoever she decided she would display to the world. That day, she was the gracious hostess. This was her reality, and like so many others in her life, I often took it at face value for many years. It took me far too long to understand that her reality generally wasn't the one most of us inhabit. I would also eventually discover that Sarah Jane was charming and gracious when she wanted to be. For a long time, she got a lot of support from me in multiple ways. I served as a sounding board, as someone to send gifts to her son on her behalf, and to send clothes to her during the years when the inmates were allowed to wear street garments. Once a year, she would also receive a gift box, which usually contained toiletries, as long as I had it sent directly from a business. I was happy to provide her with other conveniences, such as reading material. I knew that the women in the facility were always hungry for good reading because the bookmobile, a mobile library, had a limited selection, and that books were shared widely in the population. And during those times when I could afford it, I sent her a small monthly allowance. On my visits, Sarah Jane would perform and talk as if she were still entertaining in her suburban home in Danville, California, 30 miles from the city by the bay. Her letters to me were all very similar, perfectly printed, grammatically flawless, and excruciatingly detailed. They usually began with a "thank you for," and she always remembered to ask about my son and to highlight the similarities in our lives. No challenges, no questions, just polite and newsy letters and phone calls. I never had a reason to doubt what she told me, and I never questioned her or checked on anything she said. It didn't matter, and I just assumed that what she said was true. After all, why would she lie to me? In 2003, my schedule became more flexible, and I went to see Sarah Jane. It had been more than a year since my last visit. When I explained that I had some time on my hands, Sarah Jane said, "Well, now you should get back to your real writing." "What do you suggest I write about?" "Maybe it is finally time to write my book." We talked about what it would mean for me to transition from a regular visitor to an official journalist, with privileges to bring in a tape recorder and paper for notes, more than just a plastic sandwich bag full of change for the vending machines. As I began to sketch out a schedule and create lists of people, Sarah Jane started canceling our visits. She would call me at the last minute, on the same morning I was to drive 70 minutes to reach the latest prison relocation. Breathless, she would tell me on the phone that some prison issue had suddenly come up and I couldn't get in to see her. On our last visit, I began to gently ask her about growing up in Charleston, West Virginia. Her back stiffened and her head twisted in my direction. "How did you know that I was from Charleston? I never told you where I grew up." "I know you didn't tell me. You didn't have to. It was all over every news story ever written about you," I said. Through clenched teeth, she replied, "That may be, but I didn't tell you." This exchange raised one of several small red flags. Sarah Jane's demand for control was going to be a problem. I had put out requests for interviews to many people who could tell me about Sarah Jane's early life. One such person was Father Bill O'Donnell, a Catholic priest at St. Joseph the Worker Church in Berkeley. Sarah Jane